Welcome to this DaVinci Resolve Fusion node breakdown. Today's node is the Text Plus node. And I can't believe I haven't covered this node before because it's a pretty well used node within Fusion. So let's go ahead and jump into Fusion, and I'm going to hit Shift Space and add a Text Plus node. So the Text Plus node is a node to add text. So let's jump right in, and I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible, but there's a lot of stuff to cover. And I'm going to cover all the menu systems today, and then tomorrow I'll probably cover the modifiers because there's a lot of stuff that we can do with the Text Plus node with modifiers. So Text Plus node. Up top we have multiple menu systems. So right here, this is where we go ahead and input our text. So let's put Text Plus node breakdown. There we go. We've got our text in there. And it's as simple as that. Type it in, and we can hit enter, add more text if we want. And under our fonts right here, this will load any fonts you have on your system. So remember, if you're passing on your nodes, any fonts you use, make sure you package your fonts up as well, because if somebody else is using it and they don't have your font, it's not going to load. Right here, we can change our font type for whatever font we have loaded. We can change the font color to whatever color we want. We can change the size. We can change the tracking, and we can change the line spacing. And under here, we have the location of our vertical anchor point. And this, just so you know, is our anchor point. So I can have it in the bottom, the middle, or the top. And right here, we have a slider to adjust it manually to have it wherever we want. In here, we have the vertical justify button. And this really isn't going to do much in this setting, but if we go to, say, layout, and we change it to a box, and we go to our vertical justify, you can see now we're justifying our text within that box. So let's go back to point. And here we have our horizontal anchor, whether it's left, middle, or to the right. We have a slider to adjust it manually. And we have a justify slider so we can justify our text. Right here under direction, we just have automatic. You can switch it to horizontal, reversed horizontal, vertical, or reversed vertical. In our line direction, we can have automatic, top down, or bottom up. And we have two options for emphasis on this text, which is strike through and underline. Right here, we can change our right on. So if we wanted to say animate this right on, we could turn it all off, make a keyframe, go to the end, turn it all on. And if we play it back, it's going to write our text on. Under tab spacing, this is where we can create different tabs. So in order to see that, first we got to make a tab. So I'm going to hit enter, tab 1. Actually, I'm going to tab twice and write tab 2. So if we go to our tab controls, we can select our tabs. So tab 1, first tab. Every time we hit a tab, that's the next tab. I can change the position of that tab, and I can change the alignment. And if I want to change tab 2, again, I can change the position of tab 2, and then I can independently change the alignment. So that is the tab space. And you have up to 8 tabs you can set independently. So let's go ahead and delete our tabs out. Under advanced controls, we have reading directions. So automatic is just going to be your typical left to right for like English and other standard languages, or we have right to left if you're doing Arabic or Hebrew, I believe. And right here, we can force monospace to change our kerning, which is the spaces in between our text here. And we can select to use font kerning or not. And this is all going to be dependent on the fonts you use. So some fonts have kerning abilities, some don't. Same with using ligatures. If you have fonts that have ligatures, you can use non-Latin. You can select none, or you can select all scripts. And basically your ligatures are your extra glyphs. So if you have like a FF that is considered a single glyph, that's using your ligatures. And in that, if you need to split those ligatures up, you can select style can split ligatures. Otherwise, it's just going to treat a ligature as a single text. And under stylistic sets, if your fonts came with stylistic sets, you can select which ones. And under font features, if you're using like your Open Font 4 type stuff, which I don't believe this font is, but you can type in your Open Font code. So for instance, I can type frac, which is going to give us fractions, smaller fractions. So instead of 1 half, if this was an open type source, this would be this small 1/2 instead of this big one. And if you're not sure what your font features like shorthand are, you can look them up. I believe Microsoft has a whole list of them on their websites to see what these little font features do. Under manual kerning, if this font came with kerning, I would be able to set kerning or manual kerning. And you notice there's no sliders or anything, because the only way to do this is to right click on the manual kerning or manual positioning. So if I right click on it, I can say stylized text, or it's a follower, or animate my kerning there. But since this font doesn't support it, we're not going to see anything. But if it did, you would be able to apply manual kerning or manual positioning for your fonts. And here you can clear your selected or clear all if you want to undo those. Under our layout here, we have multiple types to be able to lay out our text. And right now it's set to point. So right here, I can change my center, which is what our little gizmo in the middle here does. It changes our layout. So I can move this around. You can see it's changing our center. And if I rotate it, you can see it's changing our rotation. And we can also change the center Z location. We can change our size. And we can change our perspective, but this isn't going to take place until we actually do a change. So let's say we rotate on the Y. We change this perspective. You can see we're changing the perspective of our fonts. Rotation is exactly that, and we can change our rotation order if we want. And we can rotate it on the X, the Y, and the Z. Additionally, we can change our background color, and by default it's set to black and transparent, so our background is transparent, but we can increase the alpha if we want. Additionally, we can select here, we can pick a different color, so we can change the coloring. And we can change the coloring independently on the red, the green, and the blue. Under our text box type, we're going to get a text box. And within our display here, we can change the size of our text box if we need to. In our checkbox right here, it just allows us to wrap to the text box or go through. And right here, if we select clip to text box, if I decrease this, you notice our text disappears. But if I uncheck this, our text will still be there and not be clipped if it's outside of our text box. And we can change the center Z. We can change our size. We can change the width and the height independently. And again, if we have some rotation to it, we can change the perspective of that rotation. In our rotation and our background menus are the same. Under circle, we're going to get a circle so we can write along that circle path. In our display, we can change the size of the circle. And we can change the center here, the center Z. And we can change the width independently. And our perspective as well, as long as we have some rotation to it. So we can change that perspective. And under our fit characters, this is how we're going to fit on our little circle path here. So right now it's set to adjust spacing to fit. So it's going to adjust to fit within that circle. I can also select none and adjust horizontal size to fit. So as we change, it's going to change. And then finally, I can just select adjust size to fit. So it's going to fit no matter what we do. And down here, we have the same rotation and the same background menu system. Under path, we can create a path. So let me go ahead and reset this. And to create a path, all we have to do is click in here, create a path, just like you would any other path. And we can change the center Z. We can change the X and the Y. We can change the size. And we can change the perspective. Again, if we have some rotation, you'll see that perspective changing. And down here we have position on path. So if you wanted to animate it on the path, if we go to the beginning, we can move it all the way off, keyframe it, go to the very end, bring it on. And now if we play it back, our text is animated along that path. And our rotation and background menus are the same. So let's go back to point. Under transform, this is where we're going to transform our text independently, whether it's on characters, words, or lines. So here we can change the spacing between our characters. We can change our offset, and we can offset on the Z as well. Under our rotation, this is going to be different for what type of transform we have. So since we have it on characters, it's going to rotate each individual character independently. So if I rotate it on the Y, you can see our characters are rotating on the Y. Same with the X, and same with the Z. And if we had this adapt width to angle selected, if I select this and I change our rotation, you can see it's changing the width as our characters rotate. If I unselect it, it'll keep them together. Under pivot, we can change our pivot on the X to Y and change our pivot Z location. But to be able to see this, we need a little pivot on our X or a Y or a Z. But if I change this pivot, you can see it's pivoting our overall text around that. Or we can change our pivot location on the X and the Y. And we can also shear on the X, shear on the Y. And we can change our size on the X and the Y. Now, if we select words, now instead of doing per character, all these transformations are going to occur on the word level. So if I change my spacing, you can see now the word spacing is changing. Same with the offsets in our Z. And under our rotation, if we rotate, you can see it's rotating on the word level. And then all of our other pivots, shear, and size work all the same. Additionally, we can do it on line level. So each line is going to be able to be transformed independently. So I can change my spacing. I can rotate it on the X, the Y, and the Z on the line level. Same with our pivot and our shear. It's going to be on the line level. So before we move on, let's go ahead and reset all of our little transformations here. And let's move to the shading tab. So under the shading tab, this is where we create independent shading. And how this works is we have multiple elements and we can create up to 8 elements. And under our elements, most of the menu systems are all the same. So by default, it sets up a few elements for you. So this has a red outline to be able to use it. We select enable. So now you notice our text has a red outline. And on the third element, they have a black shadow set up. So if I enable it, you can see there's a little drop shadow. And that's how this works. So if I want to set up a fourth one, I can enable it. Same with 5, 6, and 7. And once we select one or we're creating one, we can rename this. So say we wanted a blue outline instead. Let's just rename it to blue outline. And we can go down to our little color here and we can change it to blue. So that's what this enabled button does. It either enables the element or disables the element. Under our priorities here, and let me go ahead and reduce this so we can see our position as well. This is how we set what's going to be up front and what's in the back. So by default, it's set to priority. And that's where this priority under position, this priority slider takes place. And these numbers are somewhat arbitrary. So if I go to element 1 and we look at our priority is set to 8. Element 2 is set to 7. Element 3 is set to 6. And that's how this works. The higher the number, the higher the priority, meaning it's going to be up front. And these numbers, like I said, are arbitrary. So I could technically come in here for element 1 and say this is at level 1 or priority 1. Element 2 is at a priority 0.5. Element 3 is at priority 0.25. So it's got the same look. So that's why I said it's all arbitrary. So I can change this to 5 if I want. Change this to 6. And this to 7. And now it's back there. So that's how the priority system works. And distance is going to work on a distance level. So as I change the distance of each one, it's going to change. Same with Z position. If I change the Z position, it's going to dictate what's up front and what's in the back. Under our properties tab, this is where we can change the opacity of our fonts here. And if I do change our opacity below 1, this is where our blending comes in place. So let's go back to our transform. Let's change our spacing on our character level so they're overlapping. We'll zoom in here. So right now it's set to composite, which means it's just going to composite the transparent effect over each other. I can also select solid, which is going to maintain consistency with the transparency in the color. Or I can select transparent, which is going to knock out the overlapping colors. Let's reset our spacing here. Under appearance, this is where we dictate what type of property it has, I guess. So right now, this is just solid letters, or we can have outlines. And if we select outlines, we can change our thickness right here. Under adapt perspective, let's go on our layout and we're going to change our perspective. And if you see how this is kind of odd looking when we're using outlines, if we select this adapt to perspective, it's going to try to fix those outlines according to the perspective of your font. If I select outside only, it's going to create outlines on the outside only. And if I select this clean intersections, if there's intersections with our outlines within our text, it's going to try to clean those up so they're not overlapping. Under join style, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can kind of see this join style. If I select bevel, it's going to bevel these edges. Rounded is going to keep them rounded. If I select either of these mitering, it's going to give us an additional slider for our miter level. So I can change the limit right there on our mitering. Same with our miter clip. It's going to clip any odd mitering that's going on, but I still have the ability to change our miter limit. For our line style, we can have solid, dash, and if we have any of these dash or dotted, this line thickness right here is going to dictate how big those dash or dots are. We can have dot, we can have dash dot, and dash dot dot. Under our type right here, this just dictates whether we're going to have solid color in here, and again, we can change the color. Additionally, we can have an image. And if you notice on our text, we only have this effect mask input, but as soon as I select image, it's going to give us this white image input. So we can bring in any footage we want, video, still, and we can input it into our little input. And if it is a video like this is, we push play, it's going to play within our text. And how it looks within our text is going to be dependent on our settings down here. And I'm going to skip image source right now. Our color image is just what image it's playing. It's our media 1 in. Now, what our image sampling does, and this is for image only, this is kind of dictating how our shading or how our rendering is going to happen during our renders and our transformations. And you can kind of look at this from none, pixel, and area as none, medium, and high image sampling, basically. So having it set to pixel is going to give you good rendering and good sampling of your playback or your image sampling on top. Area is going to give you even more detail. So if you find you're having issues with anti-aliasing or anything, setting it to area is going to give you better results, but it's going to make your computer work a little harder. Or you can set it to none if you're really having issues with those pixel resampling within there. But pixel should be good enough. On your image edges, this is just if your images stretch across your edges, we can select black so it's transparent, whether it's going to wrap or whether it's going to duplicate. And we may see this once we change some of this other stuff. For our shading mapping, we can stretch it to fit each individual letter if we want, or we can maintain the aspect ratio. Right here, we can change the mapping angle. So if I play this, you can see it's playing. We can change the mapping angle. We can change the mapping size. And if I reduce the size, we can see what this image edges is doing. So if I have it set to black, it's just going to be transparent and black. If I have wrap, it's going to wrap it. And if I have it set to duplicate, it's going to duplicate. Here we can change the mapping aspect. And here, this is where we select our mapping level. And right now it's set to character, so it's mapping our image across each individual character. We can select full image, which is going to map our entire image over all of our text. We can select text itself, so it's going to try to shrink it down to fit within that text, but you can see it's kind of skewed. We can have line, so each line will have our media on it. We can select word, so each word will have an instance of our media projected onto it. And we can have per character, so each character has our image projected on it. If I select clip, this is just going to give us a little browse button so we can go find whatever we want to put on our text there. So I can select that. And then all the menu systems are the same. So we can change the angle, do it on the text level or however we want. And if I select brush, this is going to let us load any brushes we have loaded. So if I select these little bombs and I change our sizing, you can see we've got little bombs in there behind our text using that brush. And all these menu systems work the same. The other type we can use is gradient. So we can add a gradient and we can change the color of our gradient. So we can get a nice purple. You can get a nice purple. And we can get a yellow. So now we've got a gradient. In the look is going to be dependent on our mapping level. So if I have it to the full image, it's going to map across the full image. And we can change our mapping angle. We can change the mapping size, as well as the aspect. And we can still change it on the character level, the word, the line, or the text level. Under our softness, we can add softness to our text. And we can apply it just to our fill color. We can also add a glow. And then we have a blend button to blend that overall look with the original. We've already covered the position. Remember, your position, it has to do with your sort by. Our rotation is just going to allow us to rotate those on the element level. So remember, we have element 1 selected. So if we wanted to rotate these blue borders, we can go to our blue border, go to our rotation. We can rotate those independently. And our pivot is exactly that. It's going to change the overall pivot. As long as we have rotation going, it's going to change the overall pivot. And our shear is going to allow us to shear on the X and the Y. And our size is going to allow us to change size on the X and the Y. Now, if we go back to properties here, and let's go to our blue outline in properties. We have these other two right here, which are border fill and border outline. So if I select border fill, it's going to allow us to add a border fill on the character level, or we can use the text, the line, or the word level. And if we have this selected, we can change our horizontal and our vertical extend. Additionally, we can make them rounded. And if we select border outline, it's just going to give us outlines, and we can change the thickness. We can change the style, and we still have the ability to change the horizontal and the vertical extend, as well as the rounding. Under our image tab, this is where we just process our image as a whole for this node. So we can change our processing mode right here. We can change our image width if we uncheck this auto resolution. So we can change the width of our little node here. And by default, if we select auto resolution, it's going to default to our timeline resolution. And then we can change our source color space. So if we needed to make sure we were working in, say, ACES, we can change our source color space. The same with changing our source gamma. Now up top here with our Text Plus node, we have a little menu system on the top. And let's go to our shading. And I'm going to shut off our other types. So if I select this, this is going to allow me to type within my display, because right now we can't type into our display. But if I select this and click, I can directly type into our display. Break down. This is going to allow us to see our manual positioning for each individual one and manipulate them. So if I select this button, you notice we get these little green squares under each little character, including our spaces. So I can grab this and I can move the location of each individual element. Now, once I do that, and say I go into layout, everything's still going to apply like normal. So if I rotate it, it's going to rotate it. Even with my character level, if I change my spacing, it's going to maintain that position no matter what I do. right here, we have the ability to see our little text outlines here. So if I go here and I change our size, change our spacing, you notice we get these little red outlines of our text that we have going off. So right here, I can select no text outlines if I don't want to see that. Right here, I can select if I only want to see it when it's off frame, or I can select whether I want to see it at all times, off frame or in frame. And these little buttons up here just allow us to see our pivot locations. So if I zoom in and I select this, you can see these little red X's are our pivot locations for our characters, or we can see our pivot locations for our words, or we can see the pivot locations of our lines. So that is the Text Plus node. Tomorrow we're going to cover modifiers with the Text Plus node. So I will see you in the next node break now.